The Citadel of Nine Suns was an architectural marvel suspended in the gravity wells between binary stars. It gleamed like an obsidian shard crowned with solar fire, each spire reflecting the technological opulence of the Galactic Empire. Here, decisions that shifted entire civilizations were made with a tilt of a head or the flick of a diplomatic claw. Today, the Grand Convocation assembled within its vaulted halls, where planetary delegations floated on grav platforms in a room vast enough to hold a moon. Alien dignitaries of every imaginable morphology whispered in harmonic pulses, flicking pheromone trails or communicating through clouds of bioluminescent spores. At the heart of the chamber stood a circular tribunal dais where only those with speaking rights were permitted. Among the towering serpentine dignitaries of the Krell Dominion and the beetle-armored war barons of the Arweldage Clade, one figure stood out for her relative plainness: humanity's representative, Ambassador Thessa Ravel. She was not tall. She bore no glowing aura, no mechanical wings, no psionic halo like the other envoys. Her diplomatic robes were black, unadorned, broken only by the small silver crest of Earth at her collar. Her face was calm, but her eyes, those keen steel-blue eyes, held a weight not even time could easily lift. For a moment, the chamber was hushed. Then came the booming laugh of General Krovax Zur. The Imperial General's voice reverberated like planetary bombardments, shaking the very floor beneath the delegates. "Ah, the humans send another emissary. You breed them like insects, don't you?" Krovax chuckled, his massive tusks glinting with gold filigree. His armor was a relic from 100 victories, each plate etched with the names of crushed worlds. "This one looks friendlier than the last." A few of the galactic diplomats chuckled. Others turned their faces away. No one interrupted a high general of the Empire when he mocked his defeated foes. Thessa said nothing. Not yet. She had trained for this, spent 8 years in the underground archives of New Geneva, the last human city that hadn't been glassed or enslaved during the early phases of the war. She had been born during the fall of the Kepler colonies and raised in the silence, that long dark decade when Earth was presumed extinct. But humans were harder to extinguish than the Empire had imagined. They called her the Ghost Envoy, because for years she appeared at negotiation tables no one knew humans had survived to attend. And always she came not with weapons but words. "We recognize the Galactic Empire's victory over the human outer colonies," she said at last, her voice soft but firm. The acoustics of the tribunal chamber magnified it without distortion. "We are not here to dispute history." "Oh." General Krovax's amusement widened. "Then you're here to kneel. You finally learned obedience. I admire that in your species." Eventually, Thessa stepped forward, closer to the central dais. The grav platform beneath her adjusted silently, moving her to the edge of the speaking ring. Her gaze never left Krovax. "The purpose of this diplomatic summit," she continued, "is to address the treatment of war captives from the human enclaves of Thetaprax and the Kepler moons. Your empire claimed jurisdiction over their fate." Krovax grinned. "Ah yes, the prisoners. They were dealt with efficiently." Murmurs swirled through the chamber. The delegates of the Sorikale ceased their spiraling motions. The living statue of the Omnid spoke in binary to its translator drone, which fizzled briefly in static confusion. A few species, especially those who once warred with the Empire before bending the knee, grew very still. "You exterminated them." Thessa's voice held no tremble. "Every man, every woman, even children held under neutral banner." Krovax spread his massive hands. "They were enemies of the throne. What mercy should they have expected? The Empire is no orphanage. The strong endure. The weak vanish." A ripple passed through the room. It was not just revulsion, it was fear. Krovax's arrogance had crossed a line that many of them, despite their silence, recognized. This was not the destruction of an army. This was annihilation. "We have evidence," Thessa said, her eyes scanning the crowd. "Detailed records recovered from orbital debris. AI logs. Visual telemetry. The prisoners surrendered under explicit treaty codes recognized by this convocation." Krovax's nostrils flared. "Those treaties are guidelines, not law." Thessa let the silence expand. In diplomatic timing, silence was often louder than speech. She paced once around the edge of her grav platform, eyes locked with every ambassador that dared meet her gaze. She didn't need them to agree with her. She only needed them to understand what came next. "A war crime has been committed," she said finally, "under the eyes of the Empire, under your general's banner. This act breaks the Concord of Raylan 6, the Pax Solari, and the founding charter of this very convocation." An eerie hush spread through the delegates. Are you accusing the Empire of criminal conduct? Hissed the Gelati ambassador, his translucent wings flaring wide. That is suicidal. Krovax roared with laughter again, but it was shorter this time. Less confident. I'm not accusing, Thessa said. I'm confirming. At her signal, the gravity behind her shimmered, revealing a holographic display. A slow rotation of evidence, a gory orbital feed from the Thetaprax prison dome, a tactical overlay of the Empire's troop movements in direct contradiction to their surrender orders, audio files of children's screams cut off mid-sentence. One clip, a silent, still image of a soldier holding up a white cloth before being incinerated by a plasma cannon, held the chamber in stasis. Krovax snorted. Fabrications. Weak tricks. Human illusions. Thessa tilted her head slightly. Then perhaps the blood samples from your own war gear will help clarify. Krovax's face twisted. She had struck a nerve. Before the Empire could respond, a glowing sphere drifted into the center of the chamber. It was the Convocation's judiciary drone, a sentient device bound by protocol alone. Its voice was neither male nor female, but a perfectly modulated harmony of all recognized linguistic species. Query acknowledged, the drone intoned. Allegation of mass violation of concordant law under review. Convening a tribunal of reckoning requires no less than 3 sovereign delegations to motion. There was a pause. Then, to the general's astonishment, the delegate from the Ilari cradle raised a hand. Then the Chizai. Then the Ascendant Mind Hive. 3. The tribunal would convene. Krovax's laughter had died. His smile had faded. But still he leaned forward, lips curling into a sneer. Do you really think this will end the Empire? He growled. Your tribunal? Your evidence? Your pretty words. Thessa gave him a thin smile. No, General. I think your own conscience will do that. Assuming you have one. And with that, she stepped back into the shadow of her projection, letting the flames of war rekindle in the minds of those who thought it had ended. It hadn't. Not yet. Not until the truth had its day. And somewhere buried deep beneath the shattered archives of Earth, something stirred. A signal. A name. And a voice that whispered through frequencies long abandoned. Begin Phase 2. The corridor lights aboard the dreadnought Valakar were dimmed to ceremonial blue. A traditional color denoting diplomatic proceedings, or more accurately, conquest accepted without bloodshed. General Zyrak Vol strode ahead of his honor guard, confident as always, a subtle sneer twitching at the edge of his mouth. His boots clicked against the polished black metal floor in perfect cadence. Behind him, one of his aides murmured the stats of the Terran Union's surrender, the number of Earth colonies pacified, the estimated labor value of the surviving human prisoners. He didn't listen. He already knew. The war was over. Earth was broken. What mattered now were treaties, territories, and trophies. The diplomatic chamber had been custom designed for this occasion. Imperial flags draped the walls like heavy curtains, each bearing the sigil of the Everthrown Empire, a serpent coiled around a dying star. The table was obsidian, 12 meters long, flanked by delegates and generals from the core systems. A place for victors. A place for vultures. And at the far end stood a single Terran. She was not what they expected. Ambassador Sierra Halden wore no military regalia, no flowing gown. Just a slim, charcoal suit, the kind seen in Earth's ancient legal dramas. Her brown hair was pinned back with precision, and her hands rested calmly on the table's surface. No notes. No datapad. Just her. Ambassador, General Vol said, taking his seat with a flourish. I hope your journey was not too difficult. I've heard humans are rather sensitive to changes in gravity and pressure. There were scattered chuckles around the room. Sierra inclined her head, expression neutral. I'm acclimated. Thank you, General. The delegate beside her, a frail xeno-legal officer named Hurin, fidgeted. As she arrived without an escort, he whispered, audibly nervous. Insisted on negotiating alone. No backup fleet. No weapon signatures. It's either bravado or madness. Vol didn't care. Both amused him. Sierra's eyes scanned the room. Shall we proceed with the articles of surrender? The Empire's lead diplomat, a pallid Glavian with a face like drying clay, nodded. Indeed, Ambassador Halden. Article 1 states the unconditional disarmament of all remaining Terran military assets, including hidden arsenals, sleeper ships, and any autonomous AI combatants. She raised a hand. Before we go through the articles, I have a question. The room stilled. Vol cocked his head. A question? Now. Yes. She placed both hands flat on the table. Where are the Terran prisoners from the colony of Deadlier Prime? A subtle shift moved through the room. A few glances, a few raised brows. Nothing overt. Vol exhaled through his nose, amused. Why would you ask that, Ambassador? Those were military targets. They resisted. As I understand it, the colony was, how do you say it, pacified. I asked for a list of all POWs. Your diplomatic office sent one. Deadlier Prime's defenders are missing. 72,000 names. Gone. Not marked as killed. Not marked as transferred. Simply, unlisted. Administrative delay, perhaps, offered the Glavian. It is a large galaxy after all. No, Sierra said softly. Because I cross-checked your logs. Pause. You keep meticulous records, General. Down to the oxygen consumption on prisoner transports. And yet, the vessels assigned to Deadlier Prime never arrived at the POW stations. The last data ping they sent was 20 minutes after surface resistance ended. And then, nothing. Vol leaned back, clearly enjoying himself. I see the Terrans still believe in stories. Conspiracies. Suspicion as a replacement for strength. Did you kill them? Sierra asked again. Her tone had not changed. Still even. Still calm. Vol laughed. A few others joined him. But something about it felt thinner now. Less confident. I don't answer to a broken species, he said, voice low. You came here to sign. To kneel. Not to question how an empire handles trash. Sierra didn't move. But the temperature in the room shifted somehow. Not literally, but it felt colder. Sharper. Then I won't sign, she said. Silence. The entire chamber hushed like a theater awaiting its third act twist. The Glavian blinked. I don't think you understand, Ambassador. Your world is conquered. You have no fleets. No allies. You're here because we are offering mercy. Sierra stood slowly. Her voice was very, very quiet now. The Empire wants our resources. Our knowledge. Our engineers. You didn't glass Earth. You need us to cooperate. Which means this treaty matters to you. She looked at each face in turn. You need legitimacy. General Vol's smile had faded. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything, she said. I'm stating it plainly. She tapped the table twice. From her sleeve, a tiny disc ejected and projected a rotating hologram. It was dark at first, static and flicker, but then stabilized. An image appeared, Terran prisoners unarmed in tattered uniforms. On their knees in a shallow crater. Surrounded by Empire shock troops. A single order command followed. Then flashes of plasma. Screams. And then stillness. Sierra let the image rotate once. Then a second time. She let the silence draw out. The room was frozen. You executed prisoners of war, she said. After they surrendered. After your own diplomats issued a guarantee of life under Article 7 of the Soul Accord. She looked directly at General Vol. That's not conquest. That's a war crime. He stood so fast his chair tumbled backward. How did you get that feed? That was purged. That. Sierra cut him off. The data fragment came from your own comms node. Someone in your own ranks still has a conscience. More silence. Harsher this time. Outside the ship, the stars remained unchanged. Unmoving. I represent not just Earth, but the other 17 former independent colonies, she said. I came here alone to give you a choice. Her words were colder than ice. Nullify the treaty. Or Earth goes dark. Every remaining Terran goes off-grid. No engineers. No translators. No technicians. No future for your war machine. No cooperation. Just whispers. Just sabotage. Forever. You doom your people over soldiers? The Glavian asked, horrified. No, she said. You did. When you murdered them. The chamber exploded into argument. Shouts, legal protests, threats of retaliation. But none of it mattered. Because Sierra wasn't watching them anymore. She was watching General Vol. And he wasn't shouting. He was staring. Not in anger. But something else. Recognition. The way a hunter recognizes the one prey that will not run. You've made a mistake, he said, low and dangerous. You think you've won something here. No, Sierra said. Not yet. She tapped her wrist. A signal pulsed across secure channels. Across space. Across systems. To every Terran cell, every hidden outpost, every sleeper AI. The signal was a single word. Remember. And in that moment the Empire's victory began to crack. They thought Earth was finished. But they had never faced Terran memory. Within 3 hours of Ambassador Sierra Halden's transmission, chaos bloomed like blood and water across the Empire's core systems. On the mining moon of Loran 6, a refinery exploded, sabotaged from within by a laborer who had once been an orbital welder in Earth's Lagrange fleet. On Vorth Prime, a supposedly docile engineer rerouted coolant flow in the capital spire, melting the administrative AI hub. Thousands of Empire systems stuttered, then blinked out. Coordinated. Done. Precise. The word had spread like fire. Remember, it wasn't just a call. It was a resurrection. Within the Empire's own networks, long-dormant files began to reappear, encrypted caches seeded during Earth's final days. Testimonies, evidence, blueprints, blackmail. A storm of hidden truths riding atop stolen signals, seeping into every level of society. Civilians began to question. Soldiers began to hesitate. And deep inside the Empire's sprawling propaganda engine, a new rumor began to take root. The Terrans were never truly conquered. Back aboard the Valakar, Sierra Halden sat alone in a secured observation chamber. From the vast viewport, she could see the Empire fleet repositioning, defensive posturing now, not celebratory. Around her, alarms had ceased. Not because the threat was over. Because it was just beginning to be understood. The door behind her hissed open. General Vull entered, no guards this time. His armor was gone, replaced with a dark officer's coat. He moved like a man walking into a courtroom, not as judge but as the accused. "You coordinated a galaxy-wide insurgency with a single word," he said quietly. Sierra didn't turn. "I didn't coordinate it. I simply reminded them who they were." He approached slowly. "Do you realize what you've done?" "Yes. You've broken the rules of diplomacy." "No," she said. "You broke the rules of war. I'm just correcting the record." Vull paused at that. His next words were quieter. "This empire runs on belief. If our citizens begin to doubt, everything fractures." She finally turned, meeting his gaze. "Good." A silence bloomed between them, thick with unspoken truths. "There are others," she said. "Other war crimes. Other massacres. Deadlier Prime was just the spark." He didn't deny it. Instead, he sat across from her, shoulders heavy. "You could have waited. Let your people rebuild. Bargain over time. But now, you've turned this into a holy war." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "No. You turned it into a holy war when you made martyrs out of the people who surrendered in good faith." Vull tapped his fingers against the console. "I've studied humans. You're not as strong. Not as fast. Not genetically enhanced like the Kethri or grown in spawn vaults like the Korok. And yet, you scare us more than any species we've ever subjugated. Because we remember," Sierra said. "And we don't forget. Even after we lose. Even after we're broken." Outside, another explosion bloomed in the black. One of the outer defense satellites consumed from within by its own reprogrammed AI. Vull's eyes tracked it without reaction. "You've made it impossible for us to control you." Sierra leaned forward, her voice razor thin. "That was always true. You just convinced yourselves otherwise." Then the door hissed again. A new figure entered, a cloaked envoy bearing the insignia of the Kethri Dominion, one of the Empire's strongest allies. He looked between the two of them, then spoke in a voice of pure disdain. "The Dominion will not be a part of this farce." Vull blinked. "Explain." The envoy turned toward Sierra. "Your accusations, your evidence, they spread beyond our borders. The execution logs. The encrypted orders with your biometric seal. It's all out now." "Forged," Vull spat. "Terran disinformation." "We verified them," the envoy said flatly. A new silence. Colder. He continued, "The Kethri have no interest in siding with an empire that commits dishonorable slaughter and then hides it. There is no glory in exterminating the unarmed. The Dominion formally withdraws from this alliance. Effective immediately." He turned and walked out. Vull sat very still. Sierra exhaled softly. "That's the beginning." He rose, sudden and angry. "You think this is victory? It's collapse. You've just thrown a match into an ammo depot." "No," she said. "I lit a torch in the dark. If your empire can't survive the truth, then it doesn't deserve to exist." Vull stared at her. Something behind his eyes finally cracked. "You'll regret this. You'll beg for stability once chaos spreads far enough. And when you do, no treaty will save you." "I'm not here to be saved," she whispered. "I'm here to be heard." And then a voice came over the comm line, urgent, tremulous. "Sir, another Dominion fleet just turned. They're moving toward the Vask belt. Reports say they're escorting Terran refugees. Sierra stood. History isn't written by the conquerors anymore, she said. It's written by the ones who speak last. She walked toward the door, pausing only once. Oh, and General? The name, Deadless, is going to mean something again. Just wait. And then she was gone. Vol remained frozen. Outside, across the stars, the Empire began to. Vol stood on the command deck of the Valkyr, his hands gripping the rail as reports scrolled in around him like snow in a blizzard. One after another, systems flickered red. Entire sectors blinked off the grid, not because of enemy fire but because of refusal. Kethri ships ignored direct orders. Choric comm relays went silent. Even within the human integration colonies, those scarred remnants where the Empire once corralled survivors, uprisings now churned. But it wasn't the rebellions that haunted him. It was the silence. The silence from the Empire's heart. Those governors, warlords, and clients who had once laughed with him. They weren't responding. Because they were waiting. Watching. Weighing their own odds in this unraveling order. He slammed his fist on the railing. Bring her back. The command crew hesitated. I said bring the diplomat back. Now? The officers scrambled. But Ambassador Halden was gone. Disappeared into the storm she'd unleashed. What Vol didn't know, what the Empire couldn't know, was that Sierra was already in orbit over Deadless Prime. The ship that carried her wasn't Imperial. It was one of the last Terran stealth frigates, repaired, repainted, and hidden in the asteroid graveyards for decades. The Solstice Arrow now bristled with reawakened systems and repurposed minds, AI that had gone dark when Earth fell, now humming once more in their bitter clarity. Approaching coordinates, the pilot said. He was young, too young for war, but his eyes carried the same iron thread Sierra had seen in every freed Terran operative in the last 3 weeks. He was from Jovian Station, born under occupation. And he remembered. Uncloak, she said. The stars rippled. The ship shimmered into view. From Deadless orbit, a Kethri flagship hailed them immediately. Not with a warning but a salute. The bridge of the Dominion vessel filled the comm screen. An obsidian-scaled female with ceremonial scars traced down her jaw and throat. We stand ready, Halden of Earth, said Commander Threx. We saw the logs. Our ancestors would have torn their own claws out before honoring such dishonor. Sierra bowed her head slightly. Thank you, Commander. Are the channels ready? All 6 quadrants on frequency. The Empire will hear. She stepped toward the transmission console. Behind her, dozens of Terran survivors manned stations. Some wore old Navy uniforms, some patched civilian gear, but all of them bore the sigil of Earth on their shoulder again. A phoenix rising through ash. Begin transmission, she said. Across the galaxy the screens lit up. From orbital billboards on trade planets to flickering holo ads in mining colonies to private feeds in high command bunkers. Every system the Terrans had seeded in the war's final hours now flickered with her image. Sierra stood in full diplomatic dress, dark, tailored, the crest of the Terran Concord gleaming over her heart. I speak now to all peoples under Imperial rule, she began. Not as a soldier, not even as a diplomat, but as the daughter of a race you were told was extinct. The room behind her darkened. Images appeared, dozens of frozen stills from the execution files. One by one, prisoners lined up, faces bruised, eyes hollow. Men and women of Earth who had surrendered under the Empire's false promise of mercy. I speak from Deadless Prime, the place where my brother died, where my aunt was shot unarmed, where over 1,000 prisoners were killed after the Empire declared their systems cleansed. She paused, letting the silence pierce deeper than any speech. I'm not here to beg. I'm not here to bargain. I am here to tell you, your empire is already dying. And it is not dying because of war. It is dying because it forgot its own lies. The images shifted, testimony clips, internal memos, even holologs from disillusioned officers, all speaking the same truth. The cleansing orders were never rogue. They were doctrine. The screen widened. And then, an image no one expected. A live feed. Of survivors. Thousands. Not just Sierra's crew but resistance cells from across the stars. Families freed. Children raised in hiding. Ex-Imperial techs who joined them. Even alien allies. Defected Kethri, sympathetic Choric, civilians once forced to believe Terrans were savages. You tried to erase us, she said. But memory does not die in silence. It dies when we stop speaking. And we are speaking now. On Imperial worlds, riots broke out. Not just by humans but by alien citizens who now questioned the trust they'd placed in their rulers. In several sectors, the Empire's governors fled. Local defense forces defected. But on the Valakar, Vol watched in mounting rage. "Target the source," he snarled. "That broadcast relay. Wipe them out." The weapons crews stared at him. One officer, young, trembling, spoke. "Sir, the relay is being protected by a Dominion fleet. If we fire..." "Do it." The silence that followed wasn't confusion. It was mutiny. One by one, stations went dark. Officers walked away. The bridge emptied, not with panic, but with rejection. Vol was left alone, surrounded by blinking lights and a crumbling dream. He sank into his chair and understood. The Empire had not lost to weapons. It had lost to truth. Above Deadlier Prime, Sierra Halden received the final update. "He tried to fire," the pilot said quietly. "They refused." She nodded. On the screen before her, thousands of ships now hovered in silence. Imperial vessels that no longer bore their former colors. Some shut down weapons. Others opened gates. A few in the far corners of the system began broadcasting back. Not orders, but apologies. "Ready to begin decommission protocol," her communications officer said. She nodded again. No more dead worlds. And the Terran fleet powered down its weapons. Not because it was weak, but because it had already won. The fires of rebellion didn't blaze in firestorms. They bloomed like seeds under ash. One by one, systems began to shift, not through conquest, not through coups, but through questions. Broadcasts of the execution files spread faster than plasma torpedoes ever had. The protocol Sierra Halden released became forbidden scripture in Imperial space. In marketplaces, on prison walls, in the personal devices of dockworkers and planetary officials, the words took root. "You killed our prisoners of war." That phrase wasn't just a condemnation. It became a litmus test. Spoken in whispers first, then in open protest. It passed from voice to voice, species to species, and gained more weight with each repetition. Entire outposts revolted not because they loved Earth, but because they suddenly saw the Empire for what it truly was, something that had murdered its own illusion of mercy. And through it all, Halden never disappeared. She didn't flee into legend. She remained visible, on neutral channels, in reopened embassies, at the tables where peace was being negotiated. Not peace in the Empire's terms, but in the terms Earth had always fought for. Freedom of will, dignity of truth, and a voice for even the weakest. The first to break formal allegiance was the Talakan Confederacy. An ancient client race of the Empire, the Talakans had provided financial logistics for centuries, assuming they were a shielded, elite class. But when Sierra unveiled a hidden ledger, the one showing Talakan traders were executed during the same purge as Earth's surrendered soldiers, it broke their silence. In a matter of days, they arrested their own governors and offered Earth the first interstellar reparations. Others followed. A dribble at first, then a flood. And yet Sierra didn't gloat. Her face, tired but resolute, remained on every feed. To her staff, she was a tower of balance, never sleeping long, never celebrating the shift too early, never trusting any promise that came without accountability. "Have you read this one?" said Jonas Hallow, handing her a data pad. "It's from the Korak." Sierra scrolled through the message, noting the formal apology, the handwritten names of the humans buried on their penal moons, and the signed offer to exhume and repatriate the remains. She nodded. "Accept their gesture. And send our own. A full download of the prisoner archives." Jonas hesitated. "You're giving them everything? They need to see all of it. Every failure. Every brutality. We don't win if they only see what makes us look good." He stared at her. "God, Sierra. You're trying to rebuild something more than just Earth, aren't you?" Her voice was quiet. "If all we do is topple the Empire, then someone worse replaces it. But if we force them to remember, if we remind the galaxy what forgetting costs, then maybe the next Empire won't be born at all." Somewhere across the room, a cheer broke out. One of the Kethari officers just got confirmation. Their people had officially declared neutrality, no longer bound by the war compacts. "They're out," the officer said, stunned. "The Kethari homeworld is out of the Empire." People clapped. Some wept. And Sierra simply sat down, her hands folded together, eyes focused, not on celebration, but on the slow, delicate unraveling of something much older than her war. Jonas looked at her, brow furrowed. "You okay?" She blinked, then nodded slowly. "I was just thinking of the man I quoted, the one who trained me back at the consulate before Earth fell. He once told me, the most dangerous truth is not the one that hurts. It's the one that demands change after it's heard." Jonas chuckled. Well, I'd say the whole damn galaxy just heard it. Later that week, the Valakar was officially decommissioned. Vol didn't attend the ceremony. He'd been placed under confinement, awaiting tribunal proceedings from a mixed-species alliance council. His own officers turned him in, on live broadcast no less. That tribunal wouldn't be a show trial. No, this time it would be a true reckoning. Sierra didn't gloat over his capture. When the images of the once proud general, now pale and stunned in his prison cell, began to circulate, she didn't comment at all. But when reporters asked what she thought of his fate, she said simply, "I hope his grandchildren remember him as someone who had the power to change and refused." The legacy of what she'd done could not be contained in headlines. In orbit above Luna, where Earth's shattered moon cities had once stood like mausoleums, new foundations were being laid. And they were not just human cities, they were councils, integration forums, shared laboratories. One of the newly forged banners, white with a split blue and gold crest, hung proudly from a rebuilt scaffold. It bore 3 words: "Remember the truth." Sierra visited the site weeks later, standing on the edge of a still-scorched hill where her family's old outpost once stood. She knelt, placing a metal tag into the dirt, her brother's. The tag was etched with his ID, but underneath it, a simple phrase. He laid down arms when told there would be mercy. Beside her, a young alien child tugged on her coat. "Are you the lady who made the war stop?" Sierra smiled faintly. "No. I'm the one who reminded people it was still happening." The child tilted her head, blinking her 4 violet eyes. "Will it come back?" Sierra paused, watching the clouds roll past the horizon where Earth's atmosphere still shimmered with faint ion fields. "It might," she said. "But not the same way. Because this time too many people saw it." As she rose, Jonas approached from behind with a new datapad. "There's something you should see," he said. It was a message encrypted. Not from the old worlds, not from the systems they just liberated. From deep space. A station that hadn't been heard from in 30 years. A ghost ship by all accounts. And yet, it bore the Terran flag. Alive. Pulsing. Calling home. The signal from the deep space station shouldn't have existed. Officially, the Perseid relay array had been abandoned when Earth fell, its last transmissions garbled by a cascading systems failure. Rumors abounded over the years. Smugglers claimed to have seen its lights flicker, scavengers whispered of ghost echoes, but nothing concrete had ever emerged. Until now. The beacon was unmistakably human. Coded in the old Terran dialect. Wrapped in antique encryption. But more haunting than its authenticity was its timing. Just days after the collapse of the Empire's outer ring. Just hours after the first interspecies justice tribunal formally began. Jonas stared at the projection as it looped again. A woman's voice, coarse and tired but unmistakably human, played over a crackling feed. "This is Diplomatic Relay Station Perseid 3. If you are hearing this, then Earth is not lost. And neither are we." Sierra didn't speak for a long time after it ended. Her mind had already begun calculating the implications. If Perseid 3 had survived, what else had? What enclaves of human resistance, forgotten, written off, or buried, might still be waiting? But deeper than calculation was awe. Not because humans had once again defied extinction, but because they had continued speaking. That station had sent a message not knowing if anyone was listening. A voice hurled into silence, across decades, across a dead war. Hope weaponized. Hope made strategy. Later that month, Sierra addressed a historic gathering in the newly restored Orbital Forum, now recognized as the Unified Assembly of Post-Imperial Worlds. It was not a government yet, but it was a beginning. A place where species once at war now shared breath, language, and argument. Sierra stood before delegates of 100 civilizations. Her voice steady. Her hands marked by scars from both war and rebuilding. She did not speak of vengeance. She spoke of history. Of what they'd lost, not just ships and soldiers but truths. Memory. Dignity. And the voices buried by empire. "You've seen the files," she said, eyes sweeping the crowd. "The executions. The betrayals. The prisoners who surrendered under white flags, and died in silence. What happened to Earth was not unique. It was just efficient. The Empire did what all empires do, it erased." She paused, then stepped forward. "We are not here to build a new empire. We are here to make sure memory becomes stronger than fear. That law means something again. That if one child on one forgotten moon is taken unjustly, someone will answer." The applause was not thunderous. It was quiet, grave, respectful. Afterward, as she left the chamber, an aide handed her a copy of a report, an unofficial transcript from a fringe colony outside the known trade lanes. The people there had built a monument. They called it the Last Stand of the Surrendered. A black monolith, its sides inscribed with names, thousands of them. Many guessed, many partial, some carved in the scripts of species that had once denied the dead. At its base were only 5 words. They obeyed peace and died. Sierra touched the datapad, then handed it back. She didn't need the reminder. She carried every one of them inside her. But the galaxy had changed. The unraveling of the Empire triggered waves no one predicted. Former slave races now demanded reparations. Education systems were rewritten, not to glorify victors but to chronicle victims. Veterans of the human wars, long forgotten, began to emerge from exile, telling stories that contradicted everything official history had claimed. A former Imperial communications officer leaked the silence protocols, internal memos that revealed exactly how the order to execute Earth's prisoners had been framed, as a mercy. The most chilling line simply read, "History will forget the ones who obeyed." It hadn't. Because Sierra hadn't let it. Because Jonas recorded. Because hundreds of diplomats, scholars, and survivors echoed her words on every planet where even one being had listened. Over time, a new phrase took hold. It didn't belong to any single culture, but rather appeared organically, graffitied in alleys, whispered in revolutions, etched into new monuments. Human, don't stop. It was a phrase both tribute and warning. It didn't mean humans were perfect. It meant they endured. It meant their memory was sharp and that once awoken, they did not sleep again. Entire art movements sprang up inspired by Earth's fall and rise. The silent cry of the surrendered became a central theme in the teachings of the Paxian Harmony, once a neutral race that now trained diplomats and negotiators using Earth's history as a central case study. In the Ketheri Nebula, where the Empire once trained its execution squads, a new library stood, a spiraled tower of stone and steel. It contained every known record of the war crimes committed during Earth's occupation. At its peak, open to space, stood a bronze statue of a woman raising a datapad skyward. Her name was not listed, but everyone knew it. Sierra Halden declined titles. She declined monuments. She continued to serve, quietly, rigorously, building the frameworks that would last longer than she would. She taught new envoys how to speak truth not for applause but for justice. How to wield language like a blade but never draw it unless it could save more lives than it cost. And in time Earth was rebuilt. Not as it was, but as it could have been. Not in spite of its scars, but because of them. 50 years after the war ended, an alien child asked a teacher during history class, "Why didn't the humans give up?" The teacher didn't answer with dates or battles. She played a recording. One voice. Old, weathered, but clear. Sierra's. If they kill the ones who obey, then obedience is no sanctuary. If they erase the ones who surrender, then surrender is not peace. So we speak. We endure. We remember. And we make them remember too. The class sat in silence. Not out of fear, but in reverence. Centuries passed. Empires rose. Empires fell. But across the stars, among the ruins and the new dawns, that story remained. Whispered. Echoed.